welcome to View from the Pulpit, where we discuss and explore the place and function of preaching in the church. I'm your host, Ben Smith, and I'm a pastor in rural South Georgia, and I've been preaching and pastoring churches for over 20 years. This podcast is about preaching, but it's not a podcast just for preachers. In fact, I'm hoping this podcast will be a blessing and an encouragement to the church. On the podcast, I'll have conversations about the role of preaching, the labor of preparing to preach, the effectiveness of how one preaches, and everything else I can think of related to preaching. And my hope is to help the church recover an understanding and an appreciation for what preaching is and how God has ordained its role in the church. Help us get the word out by liking, subscribing, following, sharing, all those things, the podcast, so that we can get the word out about these conversations. Today it's my great privilege to have Pastor Clint Pressley on the podcast. He's the senior pastor of Hickory Grove Baptist Church in Charlotte, North Carolina. Clint's had a long tenure with the church. He is currently the senior pastor. He was, prior to that, co-pastor. He also has served there as the senior associate pastor of preaching from 1999 to 2004. From there, he went to Dolphin Way Baptist Church in Mobile, Alabama, before coming back to Hickory Grove Baptist Church there in Charlotte, North Carolina. He's also pastored churches in Mississippi. He has an undergraduate from Wofford College in South Carolina and a MDiv from New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary in New Orleans, Louisiana. Pastor Clint has been very active in our Southern Baptist denominational work. He was elected as president of the Southern Baptist Convention in 2024. Before that, he served as the first vice president of the SBC from 2014 to 2015, and he served as the SBC Pastors Conference vice president in 2013. He also serves on the board of trustees for the Southern Baptist Theological Seminary and the board of directors for the North Carolina Baptist Convention. He and his wife, Connie, have two sons. Pastor Clint, it is so good to have you here today. Thank you for being on View from the Pulpit.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, I'm excited to have you on the podcast for a couple of different reasons. One, I want to pick your brain about preaching and your unique situation, because your relationship to Hickory Grove is you've been there in three different roles, all related to preaching.
Right.
And so I just want to talk to you about that and how the Lord's used that, and then and your unique role as the president of the Southern Baptist Convention. I'm hoping that gives you a perspective of a view of the pulpits around the SBC that might be helpful just in trends and things that are encouraging and things that are challenging to you. So I do want to pick your brain a little bit about that. But so let's start with the church. So you have been at Hickory Grove in three different roles. You came as an associate pastor for preaching. Yeah. I think that's right.
Yeah.
And then came on as co-pastor and now are the senior pastor. Tell me about the church and your role of preaching in the church in those various roles.
Okay, so we joined this church when I was 16 in 1985. I served as a pastoral intern while I played football at Wofford College, come back and do that. Then I came on staff in 99 and quickly started preaching the Wednesday nights. And then, the former pastor, he didn't want to do Sunday nights. No preacher wants to preach Sunday nights. So he handed them to me. So I started preaching Sunday nights here and Wednesday nights. And then he wanted me to start an 8:00 service. So by the time I left here, I was doing an 8:00 Sunday morning and a Sunday night and Wednesday night service, which really gave me a lot of time to think and pray and try to learn how to preach. So that's what I started doing here the first time. Then I went to Dolphin Way Baptist Church in Mobile for 6 years, and then came back here in 2010. You said as a co-pastor, really it was, I did come back as co-pastor, but it came back with the idea that would soon be the pastor. And about 8 months later, I became the pastor.
Okay.
That's sort of the history.
So you mentioned, tell me again, how old were you when you were the associate for preaching?
So when I came here in 1999, I was 30.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you grew up in the church as a teenager.
Yeah. We, the 11th and 12th grade. And then every summer during my college, while I was in college, I was the intern here. So Hickory Grove sort of has been what I've been associated with church, since I was a teenager.
What a blessing.
Yeah.
What a blessing. And you mentioned that gave you an opportunity to learn to preach. So
Well, yeah, my first 7 years of ministry were in Mississippi, and I'm thankful for it. There's not one record. There's not one recorded sermon anywhere for the first 7 years. There's no evidence whatsoever, which I'm glad. I mean, that was terrible. I was terrible. Didn't know what to do. I love the Bible, love people. I don't know how to get them together. It's when expositional preaching was still sort of, it had not become the trend. So you're forced to just figure it out on your own. And that was hard going. And then when I came here in 99, man, I was forced to do Bible studies and try to learn how to do it. By that time, I was convinced of expository preaching, which takes a lot of pressure off. And you really just have to do the work. And that's what it, really started teaching me how to manage time, how to do work and do ministry that goes with it.
So who introduced you to expository preaching?
So the very first time I heard the phrase was Ted Traylor in the chapel at New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary. First time I heard and I thought he said suppository, but no, it was expository.
You're a little concerned.
Yeah, I didn't know what it was. And so then he explained taking the text in bite-sized chunks and breaking it up so that your people understand it and will nourish their souls. I said, man, that's what I want to do. And then I had an Old Testament professor named Rick Barjan, who taught us what to do. So every time we do a Hebrew exegesis of a passage, he would make us, as part of that study, come up with a sermon. So he taught us how to extract all of the ingredients and the truth out of the text, and then build, the essence of that text into a sentence or the theme statement, and then all of your points to support that theme, all of them coming from the passage itself. So learning how to actually do the nuts and bolts. So I was introduced there in New Orleans, started trying to do that in Mississippi, and then was really forced to do it here. I would just pick something and go through it.
That's tremendous, because I don't want to be super critical of my seminary training, because I think this is probably more of a reflection on how good of a student I was than the training that was provided.
Yeah.
But when I left Southwestern, I wasn't well trained to preach. I had 2 preaching classes, but I feel like most of what I learned was on the fly, catching it and picking it up. That sounds tremendous.
Yeah, it was
training
truthfully. It wasn't in preaching class. This was in Old Testament. This was in Hebrew.
Right.
He, as a professor, and we actually became really good friends. But as a professor, he made us. You need to know what to do with all the study you're doing. Like study for study's sake is great. It's good for your soul. But you're here to make it good for other people's soul. So he made us learn how to actually do something with it. And I haven't felt like I mastered it. I mean, I still am like changing things I do even now, our approach, and just trying to get better at it.
It takes there's something about just doing it every week, isn't there?
Man, it really is. I think that is the primary way to get better, get more comfortable, to have better insight, to know what to leave, what to bring with you. You just have to do it over and over again. And so, getting to do it 3 times a week from 99 to 2004 helped a lot. Yeah.
Well, one of the things that's come up often as I've done these interviews with men who are preaching is we have often recognized the grace and good gift of those early churches that we pastored, of how kind and gracious they were to us.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
There's some really bad preaching.
So many dumb things were said and done by me from the pulpit that, thankfully my first church didn't even have amplification. Like they wouldn't have a microphone. So there's not, I just stood there and shouted. My second church, we had a microphone, but there wasn't any recording. So I'm very thankful for all of that.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed. So I have recordings of my early sermons.
Oh, man. Look. Ooh.
Yeah. They're under lock and key. No one will ever.
I don't even like to hear the sermons that are from my early part of being here at Hickory Grove. It's terrible.
Is that because there's been a maturing process, or what about those early days that you don't like?
Man, I don't know. I guess it is. Some of it was just, you go to a church, and you don't know the church completely like you hope to know it. And so you're doing this general preaching. And over the course of time, it becomes very pastoral and directed at the church where you are. And I think that's probably some of the differences. And some of it is just you get older and you've done more study, you've read the Bible through more times, you just know more.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. I preached on the wrath of God this past Sunday, and the emotions of that sermon were much different than they would have been when I was right out of seminary.
Yeah, right.
The theology was, I hope, the same.
Yeah.
But just, looking out at people that you've pastored for. In fact, I had two men in particular that I was looking out on Sunday that I've shared the gospel with that have not received the gospel.
Yeah.
You preach about the wrath of God with those guys in your face.
That's just look. It's helpful, but it's helpful. The Lord uses that. The Lord helps your own soul and stirs your passions for the gospel, for them, for their fate. I mean, I think the Lord uses that. Yeah.
Indeed. Well, one of the most helpful questions I've been asking men is to share their preparation process. So walk me through your start on. I mean, if you're preaching through books and your text selection is chosen.
Okay.
But walk me through your Monday to Sunday. So Monday morning you start to the Sunday pulpit preaching. How do you meter out your preparation process?
Okay. So, Monday morning, every day's a 5 a.m. day. Sunday's at 4 a.m. Saturday, don't set an alarm. So Monday up at 5, and I have my devotional time from then till about 6:30. After I've done my Bible reading and that which I'm working on to memorize, I'll read the passage a couple times and pray through it during my quiet time. Just asking God to help me, give me insight when the time comes. So then I get to the office from 8:30 till about 11. I'll have different staff meetings. Then I'll probably have a staff lunch. Then after that, I'll come back and I don't use a computer, so I write everything down, and I'll use a giant moleskin notebook, or really I like the German ones, those lectern notebooks. And so I'll write down the passage, write it out by hand. And it helps me to start internalizing that passage and do that. I'll fool with it for a little bit, maybe an hour and a half or so, Monday afternoon, just sort of internalizing it, seeing if I see anything breaking out or anything that I've noticed. I write my own little commentary there that, it's kind of like what Don Whitney does, talking about praying the Bible, just any kind of free thought. I may never use it, but something I thought of when I'm reading that. So I'll just write that stuff down. And then the following day, Tuesday, all of these are open door study times. Tuesday, I'll spend some time in a critical commentary, go through, see if there's any cool things in the text, any words that might be good to mess around with, any thoughts that start to kind of open up. How does it fit in the greater context? I'll do that mostly Tuesday, but people are in and out of my office all day, which is fine. I mean, I don't mind an interruption. It helps me. I like to get a break. I don't have to have these long blocks of study and brood over something. So Wednesday is usually dedicated to Wednesday because I'm still teaching on Wednesday nights here. So I'll turn my attention over there to Wednesday for Wednesday. Thursday, I'll come in and shut both doors in my office and sit here and study. Thursday is a really big day studying. What I hope is by the end of Thursday is to have all of the necessary ingredients, including an outline, in my notebook written out. Then I'll put it down. Don't look at it much on Friday. Saturday morning, once I'm done with my devotional, I'll go back to my notebook and read through all the notes, circling stuff. And then Saturday at 2:30 or so, I'll go into my study at home and I'll write out my manuscript, write it all out on the index cards that I'm going to put into my leather notebook. So I do that. And then Sunday morning, I'll wake up at 4. I'll go over the manuscript till 6 and then put it in the Bible, get in the shower and go to church.
So all of this is manual, no computers, all handwritten.
Yeah, everything's handwritten, everything.
That's amazing.
Yeah, nobody can read it. It's all like a secret language.
Fair enough. So your handwriting is good enough to be able to just look at it at a glance and see it from the pulpit? Yeah,
typically, by the time you've written it out, and then I'll go through and I'll underline every word, then I'll underline each word again. So I'll probably go through the manuscript 4 times maybe before I preach it. So hopefully it's internalized by then. Now here recently, in the last couple of years, I've been trying to write less of a manuscript, especially if I'm preaching narrative. Having preaching the narrative changed stylistically kind of what I do with it, what I used to do. I'm still sort of experimenting with that.
Okay. I haven't gotten over that you handwrite everything. Have you ever seen Spurgeon's notes?
Yeah. I got one of those framed, one genuine copy of his notes. It's really something.
Yes. A dear brother gave me one of those too, and I'm like, I don't see how the man read his own. Yeah, so that's what I'm imagining that you're going to the pulpit with.
No, it's like I go with 10 big index cards, and they're put into these plastic sleeves in one of those Randall Creel notebooks. And that's what I go with. So front and back is 10 cards, and I can flip the pages hard and they don't get hung up. And that's how I do it.
And how long do you preach on an average Sunday morning?
Yeah, it's I'm thinking 35 to 40, something like that.
So what you're going to the pulpit is not word for word. 10 cards. That's just your basic an outline, isn't it?
No, I've written. It's word for word for the most. If I take all 10 cards, it is a handwritten manuscript.
Okay,
it's the whole thing. Because if I'm preaching, the reason I did that. Excuse me for interrupting. The reason I did that early on, when I was here at Hickory Grove for the first 5 years, I had to preach 5 times every Sunday morning. And sometimes in the middle of a third sermon or fourth, I would wonder, I think I've already covered this. So I get messed up. So I started writing it all out. And that became sort of my practice. It helps me think it clear. And I can say things the way I want to say them.
Okay. So I was going to say, I was watching one of your sermons, and I was interested, this is just your personal sort of approach. Your mannerism in the pulpit. I'm a manuscript guy.
Yeah.
And so, I feel like I'm maybe too tied to my text in front of me. But you had, I don't know if you're even aware of this, but you had a way of, I thought you were preaching from a manuscript, just the way you kind of carried yourself in the pulpit, but you had a way of looking down without looking down. Is that intentional, or is that just something you developed without noticing?
I try because I'm so afraid of like come off like I'm reading it. So the downside of a manuscript is you get stuck to it and you read it and you're terribly boring. Nobody likes a bored preacher. So I don't want to do that. So I've been trying to work on scooping sentences up. I go by and scoop them up with a mannerism as I see the passage itself. But you have to have internalized it, have gone over it a little bit, a good bit before you can do that.
Sure. Well, and maybe I picked up on it because I was watching to see, I was looking whether or not you were preaching from a manuscript. So I was probably paying attention to those things maybe more than the average person would. But I was going, I think he's looking down, but your head was up. And I thought, that's a cool trick.
Look, it helps to have some glasses because it blocks your eyes some so people can't really see.
That's true. I'm going to try to imitate that and see if I can't pull that off.
There you go.
The problem with mine is I have this big bald spot now. So when I look down, it's really obvious. So
Put your little powder on top of it. It'll be fine.
Well, I'm just thinking your mannerism could help me a little bit, keep my head up a little bit.
Right.
I would. Excellent. It's interesting. Most of the men that I have interviewed thus far, I was surprised. I would have thought more guys would have gone to the pulpit with outline notes. But I think all of them are in some form or fashion going to the pulpit with manuscripts.
So I'm using less and less, especially with, like I'm preaching through Exodus now. So I've got a story. So especially with that, I'm taking less with me, but I want to have the opening right. So I have it all written out. I want to have that right, whether it's an opening illustration or story or whatever it is. They get to me into the context of the passage. So at that point, once I'm there, I'm a little freer because I know what's right here in front of me. And then to make the statement, what I started doing is something I saw Andy Davis at First Baptist Durham, North Carolina. Andy's a brilliant guy. I mean, he's not like a preacher that is just like a wild man in the pulpit. He's pretty subdued. But what he would do is go and just tell the story of the passage. So I started doing that. like after I have the opening and make the statement, let's walk back through. Let me point out a couple of things that are not really sermonic, that are just interesting. So go through, point out some things, maybe 5 minutes, and then start with application and just try to make applicational points. I've enjoyed doing that. I don't know if it's any better for people. It's good for them, but I've been able to take less into the pulpit.
So it sounds to me like you're a continuous learning. You're constantly developing and learning.
Well, if you listen to yourself, it's terrible. Like, I mean, you have these guys tell you, listen, I don't know how they do it. It's terrible. And so I don't really listen to myself, but now then I'll get a glimpse. I'm like, oh gosh, I want to get better at that. Or, if I went to Coram Deo conference that Kevin DeYoung put on a couple months ago here in Charlotte. And, you hear John Piper, 73 or something like that. Just, it's unbelievable. Yes. So I think, man, I need to get better. So I'm trying to press that to the degree I can within the context of my own personality. I'm going to be limited in some degree just by who I am, but I wanted to be as good a communicator as possible.
I found that listening to myself it's helped me in two ways. One, it exposes those words and phrases that I overuse. And if they're annoying to me when I'm re-listening to my sermon, I figure they're annoying to other people as well.
Right.
And then the other thing that it's helped me with is I enjoy just my personality. I love storytelling. So I'll take an illustration but when you're listening to it back, I'll realize, that was way too big. It was a 10-minute illustration that needed to be 3 minutes. And so, it's helpful. I would not have picked that up if I was just without listening to myself after the fact.
How about that?
So,
I'm afraid that I'll think I did a good job and be prideful, or I'll be more likely upset with myself how terrible it is.
That's when you just go, God, you are amazingly gracious, God. Thank you for using me anyway.
Yeah.
So, Clint, you're I don't know what you were thinking when you allowed yourself to do this, but you were elected the SBC president last year. And, but what I'm hoping is that's giving you a unique perspective on the state of SBC pulpits. So have you discovered anything that was encouraging, anything that was troubling?
I think of several things that are encouraging. Most of the preachers that we know, regardless of the size of the church that they're at, they all like love the Bible. Like, they're not any kind of, I've not run into one person that doesn't trust the inerrancy and the sufficiency of Scripture. And the last 25 years has seen this sort of awakening to expositional preaching. Yeah. And I think probably in the last 10, maybe 15, has been this real press toward making that a Christ-centered sort of gospel preaching. Like, there's a real call for that. Everybody doesn't do it. Everybody's not good at it, but everybody recognizes how powerful that is. Mm-hmm. When I came through, like what I was sort of raised on, what I saw, what we had in our convention at the time, was this sort of almost straight revivalistic story upon story upon story to get the truth, and then bam, have an invitation. And it was, and we can learn some things because those guys were effective communicators, but I think sometimes it missed out on actually teaching us what the Bible said. Yeah. So you get an enthusiastic kind of shallow crowd, and we're trying to do just the opposite. We're trying to build some depth into people, and I think the way to do that is exposition. And we've the guys that I talk to and that I interact with, and a lot of traveling. I travel every week. Everybody I know sees the value. Now, whether or not they're any good at it is a different story, but they certainly see the value of doing expositional preaching.
Yeah, that's encouraging. So I'm gathering from that, do you sense that is a growing trend? I mean, we're moving further in that direction?
I do think so. I mean, I think we're there in a lot of ways. Like, I don't know of a person, a pastor that would say, I think primarily topical preaching is the way to go. Like, almost everyone I know would say, expositional preaching, that's what we ought to be doing. Now, again, whether they do it or not is a different story. You hear someone say they're an expositional preacher, go listen to them preach, and you might find out that actually, no, they're not.
Right.
Everybody wants to be one, and call what they do as exposition when, it's not really expository preaching.
Fair. Yes.
Yeah.
But I think even the acknowledgement that they want to be is helpful.
Right. That's right.
Or at least honoring it, whether or not we're any good at it.
I mean, right. For that to be aspirational, I'm very, very thankful for that.
I had Jeremy Morton was on several weeks ago. He's pastor of First Baptist in Woodstock, Georgia.
Yeah, I know Jeremy.
And he had just done his D-Min on and his project was on his home church pastor, which I thought was a bit bold for him to that could be some dangerous ground with your home church folks. But one of the things he talked about was that the training coming out of the seminaries for that previous generation for their preaching was, and he quoted a passage out of one of the preaching textbooks from the seminaries that said, "Go find what you want to talk about, then go hunt up a scripture passage that supports it."
Right.
No wonder we got into so much mess in the SBC.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and you just having some experience going to the pastor's conference as a young preacher, and my own pastor here. That's what I mean. They were very effective at finding stories, which I'll tell you what, that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
I mean, to spend all your time trying to find effective stories that prove a point. That's difficult, man.
Mm-hmm. It leads to some temptations to make up some stuff too.
Yeah. Oh man. Or still country songs. It's a different kind of labor, a joyful labor of studying the Bible, and you can't help but have your soul fed some. You find things, you see God's words say something you hadn't seen before,
yes.
Or find a way to communicate the glories and the depth of the gospel from Exodus. I mean, that's a really strange privilege that we have.
Yeah, and I was listening. I've forgotten who it was, but they were talking about expositional preaching is more than just parroting what the scripture says. I mean, it's more than just repeating what the text says. And I've been chewing on what they meant by that. But as I was thinking about that, I thought, one of the differences in where I'm preaching today than when I started was my well just wasn't very deep when I started.
Yeah.
So even in my study, my well wasn't very deep. And I was just struggling to get something ready for Sunday. But the sweet moment is when in your study, the Lord just shows you something new, or you come to a deeper understanding, and you're like, oh,
right.
Wait till I get to tell you this on Sunday.
Right. I agree. I think that happens over time and experience. You got to live a little bit, be kicked in the gut some, and recover to see how good just that systematic working through the Bible is.
One of the things that the structure of our churches does not provide well for is mentoring and training of young men to pastor. And I'm not real sure how we could build that in, but seminaries do the academic side well. But man, I wish there was I just feel like so much of what I know today, someone could have modeled and taught with me.
There are a couple of routes. There are a couple of routes to get that. I mean, one is to be on staff somewhere as a young guy. I think we have some churches like here in Charlotte are doing, pastoral residencies. Another way is to, like a lot of us did, is start seminary and start pastoring at a small church in the country if they'll tolerate you.
Yeah.
It was bivocational for me. We were 140 miles from New Orleans, and I would drive down every day and drive back every afternoon just to get my degree. And that church tolerated terrible preaching, but I learned how to baptize, run a deacon meeting, do a business meeting.
Yes.
All those things that go, and how to turn the lights on, cut the lights off, trim the hedges. I mean, you did everything.
Yes.
And once you learn to do some of that, it takes some of the presumption and takes some of the entitlement that sometimes shows up later in ministry.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
And those churches will bless you. They'll tell you that was a good sermon even when it wasn't.
They will lie right to your face, and I'll be glad to hear it. I'll receive it.
I did too.
Yeah.
All right. So, and I don't want to spend a whole lot of time in SBC politic type of stuff, but one of the things,
man, we can talk whatever you want. It doesn't matter to me.
One of the things that is hot right now for us is the question of concerning the office of pastor, elder, overseer. And I'm encouraged by that debate in part because I think we're recovering an understanding not only of the office, but the duties and the calling of the office.
And the function,
and the function of the office. Yeah. So are you encouraged by that? Do you see that as a helpful movement in the SBC?
I do. I've seen a general sort of resurgence, because it's like the gospel. If you don't continue to press the gospel, you assume the gospel, you lose it. Well, the same is true with some of the doctrines that we hold dear. And in the culture that we're in now, that whole doctrine of pastoral leadership and the pastor teacher, the elder, overseer, being male only, and being ineffective is what he does. There's been a little bit of a recovery of that in the Southern Baptist Convention. Now we'll still have some of those debates, and sometimes it feels like a semantic dance when it shouldn't be. But yeah, I'm glad to see guys that are that just love the Lord, love the church, and are not trying to score political points. Hold on to sound doctrine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think your word "function" was a very helpful word there.
Yeah.
I preached not long ago through the pastorals at my church, and when we started, I just warned the church. I guess that's the right word. That when you spend time in God's word, you will be things that are where your life is not rightly aligned with Scripture will be exposed. And the response to that is not to ignore the Scripture, is to bend your life to the testimony of Scripture. But it was an exposing moment for us when we're thinking about how we've structured our church and our leadership and governance. That
is that right?
Yeah, we ask people, what is an elder? What is an overseer? We had not been a deep well in our church for that, and church discipline has not been around for a very long time.
Oh man, you start introducing that, people are like, "What are you talking about?"
I found, now this is after the fact, but after the fact, I was up with some of our ladies we had a little history room. Do y'all have a history room at Hickory?
No.
You need a history room. So we were in the history room, and it's really just a closet where they put all the old stuff. But we found the old leather-bound church membership book, and I mean old.
Oh man!
And there's a whole section in there of people when the date they left and they came back. And so the ladies were asking, what is the going out and back? And I said, that's church discipline. That's when they were put out of the church. And then that's the date they came back. And so, so it was like, I wish I had found that and brought that before the church when we introduced that.
Man, that'd have been great. Yeah.
All right. So just back to your ministry. I noticed that y'all have a multi-campus church. So talk to me about the logistics of how that works.
Okay, so our church is not genuinely multi-campus. It's two different spots. What happened was, you might remember in the late 80s and 90s, churches, when there was sort of white flight, they would move out to where all the growth is on the edge of the city, the suburbs, and build another. They would just move. Our church kind of tried to do that, bought land, and not enough people would move. So we ended up with two locations accidentally in 1995. So we've been like two campuses since 1995. So every Sunday I'll start here at our Harris campus at 8:00, and I'll preach here. And then when I get done with that, after seeing everybody leave and I greet everyone, I go to our Mallard Creek campus, and church starts there at 10. I'm usually there half an hour early. I'll preach there. And when I'm done preaching there, I come back to our Harris campus, which has already started church. And I come in on about the third song, and then we'll finish the day preaching there.
And are you exhausted at the end of the day?
Yeah, I'm pretty tired. I used to be 5. So I would just go here, there, here. That was terrible. But this is manageable. But yeah, I am tired. I mean, it's you preach a sermon, you're just tired. And I don't know that 2 is much different than 3, but just mentally,
Yeah. How do y'all think about those campuses? Are they individual congregations, or are they two locations of one church?
Well, they're both. We would consider it one church, but so for instance, we have one budget, we have one fellowship of deacons, and then Each congregation, however, has all of its own staff, student pastor, discipleship pastor, worship leader, pastor, those sorts of things. So each campus functions in many ways as its own church. Like Wednesday night activities, each place does its own thing. So it feels like they're two different churches. We are connected by name, by me, by budget, and some of the key leaders. So committees, we have, one committee that serves both places. So our finance committee is over both places. So it's a pretty good hybrid.
So I'm guessing that each congregation has a bit of a different personality. Is that true?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. The locationally, like our Harris campus, established in 1995, the neighborhood has changed. This campus, this congregation is much more diverse, much more urban, and much more traditional, which is just sort of an odd mix. And then at our Mallard Creek, it is new. The building looks different. It looks more like like a gym to cafetorium sort of thing. So it has a different feel. There are chairs there. There are pews at the Harris campus, and just attitudinally, they are very different.
So how does that affect? It's the same sermon, but how does that affect your preaching each Sunday?
Not, just like it would if you're thinking of your congregation, you have them in mind. So the only thing that it will change will be some of the nuances of what I might say or application that you might do for each congregation. But you do that if you have in one location and two different congregations. But to do that, you got to actually have some knowledge of the people that are there.
Yeah.
And so that's really the work.
Have you found that to be a challenge to your pastoral work among the people being in two locations?
Yeah. The pastoral work at a church like Hickory Grove is different than it was at Clear Branch in Lincoln County or Thompson Baptist Church in Mid County or Dauphin Way. Because I won't know as many people personally.
Yeah.
Instead of knowing, I'll have to know about. But even knowing about can give you some direction as to how you flavor your preaching and how you apply a text.
Yeah, yeah. So I guess it's your main or your original campus. You have that beautiful pulpit. Is that the main campus?
Yeah, that's our main, or it's actually we're trying to call it Harris campus now. But that pulpit, I had it made when I came here in 2010, and we're getting ready to renovate, and so I got all these young pastors here harassing me to try to get a different pulpit. They want a smaller one, and I'm not doing that. We'll renovate it, and probably I'll renovate the pulpit too. Just have them refinish it.
Well, I was getting ready for this interview, just looking at some of your social media feed, and I saw where you had posted a picture of the pulpit at the First Presbyterian, I think it's First Independent Presbyterian in Savannah, Georgia.
Yeah, in Savannah, that was unbelievable.
I think that is not, if it's either one of the oldest, it's one of the oldest churches in the United States, but it's that pulpit is amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing. You ought to see it in person. I was like, is this for real? I mean, somebody get up there and preach?
Yes.
And they said, yeah, on Sunday mornings they preach from the high pulpit.
Yes. That's what they mean by ascending the pulpit.
Right on, man. Golly.
It does have a weight of authority in there. But I appreciated yours at Hickory Brother is that's a nice pulpit.
It's huge, man. It's huge. You ought to come see it.
So you wanted a large pulpit. Now, tell me why.
Yeah, I like if you walk in the room, even if you don't know anything about church, you know that something really important must go on down there. What is that big piece of furniture there for? I want the signal to be sent. I don't want to, like even at our Mallard Creek campus that has a much more modern feel. I don't want to have all of the worship leaders and sing, and then when it comes time to preach, bring out a music stand and be preached by the music stand. I don't like the signal. I don't like the signal that sends. I want a pulpit to be there, opposing itself, be in the way. And I wanted to send that kind of message.
I love that. So the older I get, the more I appreciate the accoutrements of preaching. So the pulpit, we're not legalistic. Right. I understand that you could preach from a music stand and it's the word of God that is the power there. But I'm with you on just this is an important thing and we want to testify to the importance. Now, to those who don't know you, maybe never seen you, they won't know this, but you're a distinctive dresser. So you three-piece suit guy, you've got the cufflinks, you've got the lapel flower pin. Is that convictional? Is it preferential? Or what? Where did that come from?
Yeah, it probably is. It is convictional, but it was born out of necessity. When I started preaching, I got married when I was 23 and just got done playing football at Wofford College. Still had a flat top, and I looked like a dang meathead. And I was afraid that I couldn't garner any kind of respect. So really early on in Mississippi, I started dressing up. And they would kid me then. And to do so just because I was taking it very seriously. Mm-hmm. And even if they were the worst suits in the world, I started doing that. And then as time went on, when I do something serious, I'm going to an important event, even in our culture, as relaxed as it is, there is still, okay, we get ready for the job. Mm. And so I try to do that every Sunday. I'm very serious about what I'm doing. I want to send that more than I want to send a casual or easygoing message. I want to send, hey, this is this is important. Like, this is more important than seeing President Trump, and I would dress up to see him. Yeah. So what I'm fixing to do is just as important, or if not more so. It's just developed into a uniform. Mm-hmm. That's really all. It's easy. I'm a 57-year-old man. A 57-year-old man has a harder time dressing casual. I don't know how to keep up with fashion trends. But if you got a suit and a white shirt, somebody put a tie there, you got it made.
And I don't know if this is getting older and getting grumpier. So I want to be careful that not that. Yeah. But I saw a guy, he's here in Georgia. I was watching online, and it was a casual church, but he came to preach, and he had on oversized, ripped blue jeans that looked like they weren't washed, a hoodie, and he looked like he just rolled out of bed. And I thought, brother,
so that's intentional. That's as much or more so intentional. I mean, that's making a statement as much or more so than I would be making in a suit.
Yeah,
I mean, that's a real statement. I'm sure he's trying to communicate some sort of relevance, which is weird to me because, nobody dresses like that. Like, nobody goes to work like that. You can't get a job like that. Nobody but the guys in the ministry are sending that kind of message.
But it is better than a tight T-shirt and skinny jeans on a 50-year-old man. That is an improvement.
Oh, Lord have mercy! You're right. You got that right.
And the struggle is, I'm not legalistic about dress. So, I mean, I really don't care what you wear. But I agree. It's hard.
I'm not either. I don't require our staff to dress like that. They give me the hardest time. They always mess with me about wearing a tie. I don't make them do any of that. But I feel better when I'm getting ready to preach like that.
Yeah. So you don't make your guys that preach for you there? You don't make them wear a coat?
No. Like our senior associate who does the preaching when I'm not here, he don't ever wear a tie. In fact, he doesn't stand behind the pulpit. Most of it because he's too short, can't see over it, but he has to get out in front of it.
You built your pulpit too big.
Yeah.
You're going to have to get a stool.
Right.
Oh, I love it. Well, so, but you're not a bow tie guy, are you?
No, I can't pull off, there's a real distinct ability to pull off a bow tie, and I just don't have it. I can't do it.
Oh, I think you can. I think you can.
I don't think so, man. I don't think so. I don't think so.
I think you can do it. Well, so talk with me just as a general sense. If you could speak to yourself as a young man, what are some of the things that you would say to young Clint Pressley? Brother, these are the things that you ought to pour your life into as a pastor, as a preacher. And these are the things that you think are important, but are worthless, and stop doing them right now.
I think I would spend more time listening to preachers preach and listening to communicators. like you can do some of the, I wish I had spent more time developing as a communicator. Cause you learn the nuts and bolts. If you're an ambitious guy, you like to work, you're going to do study. You're going to study the right commentaries. You're going to work hard at getting a master on the text. But I don't think enough right now is paid to communicating that well. Like we need guys that are good preachers, that are great communicators, that are bringing all that study into some sort of dynamism that God uses to help people get, because boredom is a distraction.
Yeah.
Like if you're boring, that's a distraction. Don't be boring. I would want to learn some of that sort of communicative. And I also would say, I wish I knew more of the Bible. Mm. Like I wish I had spent more time memorizing giant passages. Mm. So I'm trying to make up for some of that now, but I wish I had done that early in life.
Mm. That's good. That's good. Anything you would say don't do?
Don't be afraid to say things once the church is convinced that you love them. But be careful before they're convinced of that. Mm-hmm. Like once people love you and they know you love them, you can say anything you want. But until then, you don't have the right to do it yet. And the art of pastoring is learning when that is.
Yeah, that's helpful. Do you have some personal wounds that go along with that statement?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, every preacher, it's over 50, been hit in the head a couple of times. But no. I don't have really like bad. I don't think I do anyway. Maybe I'm just not. I don't know. But my experience of being a pastor has been the greatest thing in the world. Mm. I mean, the fact that I've made a living at this and I get to do it. And I don't know, I love the church. It's a good job to me.
Well, I think it's a sweet blessing that you've been able to pour so much of your ministry there at one church. I know that has a unique influence upon your ministry, your pastoral ministry.
Man, it really does. Yeah.
And you preach different when you know your people.
Oh, that's right. Look, and that's I've preached at all the seminaries now. And that's hard ground to plow over there. Good night. But because I don't know them, they don't know me. But like your people over 15 years, they learn your sense of humor. They know if you say something that's a little on the edge, that's just kind of how he is. It's like if you got a dad or a granddad. Well, you just know how he is. He says things. And the pastor that's been there a long time they give you some of that freedom.
Yeah. Yes. And my experience has been, I feel confidence is not the right thing. Every preacher who is faithful has to preach the text no matter on how uncomfortable it is. But I feel like there's more precision and it lands more knowing your people. You're able to speak to them on a much more intense level.
Yeah, I would agree. Man. No doubt.
So you preached at all of the seminary, I'm assuming as the SBC president in that role?
Yeah. So I had already preached at Midwestern and Southern and Southeastern and New Orleans. I'd never preached out at Gateway. So that was really great. I loved doing that. And oddly enough, I had never preached at Southwestern.
Okay. Was that intimidating to preach in those contexts?
It's every single time. It's terrible. Because, I remember because I always went to chapel when I was a seminary student, mostly so I could be critical. And all those sins find you out, man.
They do.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I do.
I'm thinking, good night. They all are judging me.
There's that one guy that's just taken about 3 weeks of systematic theology and he's ripping you apart.
Oh, and I dread it. Yeah.
Well, have you enjoyed being the president? I mean, has there been enough joy in it that you're glad that you did it?
Oh yeah, I love the Southern Baptist Convention, and this is my family. I'm glad to be the president here, and if they'll elect me again, I'll do it again next year. We'll see how it goes. Nobody's declared they're going to run yet, but you never know. Last year there were so many of them, so who knows?
That's true.
Who knows this year?
We are a strange bunch, but you're right. It's a precious group.
Yeah.
Well, Clint Pressley, thank you so much for giving so gracious of your time today to be on the podcast. I think it's been very helpful, and I thank you for your honesty and your authenticity today, talking about preaching.
Oh, man, I had a great time. I appreciate you giving me the chance to do so.
It's been great. Thank you, brother. Thank you for listening to View from the Pulpit. For more information, go to my website at bensmithsenior.org. That's bensmithsr.org. You can follow me on X at x.com/bensmithsr. I look forward to meeting you next week for another conversation on View from the Pulpit.